So did something happen yesterday, or I don't know, I just feel like all the gamers were up in arms for some reason. The Game Awards 2024 happened yesterday, and it was fine. It was fine. I don't think it really catered to me as a JRPG lover, but it was fine. And you know, from the last video, I'm trying to keep an open mind. The last video I did about like creativity kind of dying in the gaming industry, I just want to say was so insightful. Your comments were amazing and kind of will play a little bit into this video. How so? Well, watching the Game Awards, I told myself we're gonna keep an open mind. We're gonna see games that are clearly not my typical thing, but have some interest. And especially we're talking about the indie games, the indie scene. So I paid special attention to those, sort of. I'm not gonna lie, I was playing Trails of Cold Steel 1 while I was watching, so I paid enough attention. So anyways, I just think that's one thing I'm trying to practice is instead of saying, oh, this Game Award sucks, you know, this Nintendo Direct sucked, this da-da-da, it just wasn't for me. You know, it just wasn't for me. However, that's not to say there are some showcases that actually just suck. But this was not one of them. And before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm tired of being at 50K. I want to get to 60K, so help a sister out. And for the record, we're only going to be talking about the games that really captured me. So I'm really going to hone in on the trailers, because I'm going to be honest, I don't really care about the awards, you know? Because the awards don't make me hate or love a game more or less. It's more like I like the community around the Game Awards, like, oh, this is gonna win, oh, this is gonna win. If my team doesn't win, I don't really care. You know, it doesn't make the game any better or worse for me. It just didn't win an award, whoop-de-doo. So the first thing that stood out to me was the puppets. I really like that Jeff Keighley called himself out, was like, wrap it up, wrap it up. I just think that takes the wind out of like heckler's sails, if you would. I understand wrap it up came off incredibly disrespectful to speakers, but I also just think the best way to diffuse that is make fun of yourself with it. So the first game that kind of caught my attention was Shadow Labyrinth. Again, really not my typical game, but it looks like a Metroidvania, and especially when it said Bandai Namco. At first I was like, Tales? Another Tales? But alas. Instead, it was this Metroidvania with Pac-Man, sort of? Like you have a Pac-Man orb following you, and, you know, try to survive this world. It doesn't look like my cup of tea, but I'm trying to break the mold. And I do like there's this, I don't know, demonic take on Pac-Man. So I think that's kind of interesting. Then we have Kiora from the creators of Core Keeper, which I've also never heard of or know about. No disrespect, no shade. It seems to be a survival team-based game. Some people were comparing it to Terraria, I think it's called. I've never played that either, but we could see mining. We see someone like paving a wall, by the way, up top. There are enemies there, so you're doing a little bit of spelunking, it looks like. I'm kind of interested, kind of hesitant, because if it's anything like Minecraft, I'm bowing out. I'm bowing out. Okay, out of all the trailers that were announced, I think Split Fiction is the one I am most interested in. I love the idea of two authors kind of get sucked into their own fantasies. One is like high fantasy author, and the other one is a sci-fi author, and they have to go through their journeys. And apparently this is all being done by an evil corporation that I assume steals people's stories. I don't know. But I do like the concept of like, imagine if your book can't be published if you can't get through it. I don't think that's exactly where they're going, but the idea is just two people with two different creative minds, sci-fi and fantasy, trying to make it through their world. And for the record, this is by the same guy who did It Takes Two. I believe his name is Josef Fares. He's also the Oscars guy. You guys remember the one. And I think he does a really good job selling it. Like each stage has a different gimmick, you know. One that really just sold the game for me was the dragon one. First you get like a baby dragon, then it gets a little bigger so it can start to break things, and then it just becomes a full-on dragon where you could just fly through worlds. And I was like, say less. Take my money, I'm here for it. And in addition, you only have to buy one copy of the game and you can still play with friends, which I just think that's so generous. So thank you, Josef, for that. And it comes out March 6th of next year, so I'm looking forward to it. I do think Q1 is already pretty stacked with JRPGs, but you know, we're trying to expand. Next is Stage Fright from the creators of Overcooked. Again, this is a game that does not particularly capture my heart, but I'm open to the cartoony style. It's not realism. That's my biggest thing. It's not realism, so okay, fine. It does look a little spooky, but not too spooky. It's like Luigi's Mansion spooky, so I'm like, okay, I could do this. Thankfully, I do have some friends I could play this with, but something like that where you guys obviously have to work together, you guys are in different worlds, and you have to figure this out. Okay, so between all of this, we're getting a lot of like hyper anime games, and I learned something about myself today. I think there is something as too much anime, too much weeb for me. It's that Genshin Impact, that, what is it, Zenless Zone Zero, I think it's called, the ZZZ. It just looks like Genshin to me. It just looks like Genshin to me. Sometimes you change the settings, so it's like modern day Genshin. It's kind of a rare take for me, but yeah, I'm a little like, okay. It's giving Fire Emblem Engage, you know? And I think that's a little heavy on the weeaboo, but Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, we don't really know, but it's Sonic, so I'm just gonna report on it because I like Sonic. Have I ever played a Sonic racing game? Sure haven't. The only racing games I've ever played, I think, are like Mario Kart. And there was this like one adult racing game, not adult as in like, oh, sexy, but just like, I'm pretty sure you could give someone the bird. What is it? It's like Mod Nation? I think that was called Mod Nation Racers? Something to that effect, but that game is so fun. That is a great racing game. Next, Okami 2. Now, this is where I become really bitter. Okay, I am bitter. I am. Now, I'm sure, I've never played Okami, and I'm sure Okami's great. I'm confident it is great. I hear that it's like the best Zelda, not Zelda, right? And I'm sure it is. And I actually would like to play Okami. I just feel like Capcom is fucking with me. Specifically me. Just me. Because it has taken care of. It feels like every single franchise it has, right? Series it has. We have Monster Hunter. We have the Silent Hills. We have the Phoenix Wrights. Dino Crisis is coming back. Obviously Okami. But no Breath of Fire. But no Breath of Fire. I would settle for a collection at this point. I just need a Breath of Fire. Yeah, I'm bitterly happy for Okami fans, but where the fuck is Capcom for the Breath of Fire fans? Give me a Capcom, or give me a Breath of Fire 6. And no, not that mobile shit. I'm talking about a real Breath of Fire game. Anyways, congrats Okami. So happy for you. Solastia 2. So I've never heard of this game in my entire life, but looking at it, I was like, oh, it looks like Divinity. It looks like it plays similarly. I'm actually curious what your guys' thoughts on Solastia. If you guys have ever played the first one, I obviously haven't. Yeah, is it just like Divinity? Because I'm already playing Divinity 2, so I don't really want another Divinity 2. I mean, it looks good, though. It does look good. I'm curious what the community thinks about that. So we have an untitled project from the creators of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian. Now, I'm about it. Mostly. So I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I saw sci-fi, cybernetic, you know, and it's not my thing. But I told myself, again, we are opening our minds. And it's from the same creators of Shadow of the Colossus, which I think is one of the greatest games of all time. Truly a marvel on the PlayStation 2. And we clearly see the inspiration here as this man climbs a giant. You know, I think that's what, like, these games are known for having giants, save for Ico. I've never played Ico. Well, that's not true. I played it and I thought it was boring and I dropped it. So, but the other two, Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian, I have played. So we see here he climbs a giant and then he takes off. I actually like it because I do think you get the emotion of it. I feel like him and the giant used to be friends, whatever, but he couldn't save it, so he like pieced out with the head, you know? And I actually wonder if this is maybe like a prequel, or not a prequel, but just kind of like out of order storytelling. I wonder if this is like the end of the game, what we're seeing here. Throughout the game, you actually do get to play as the giant or play with the giant, whatever. So I think knowing that the giant will inevitably die like hits that much harder. Yeah, it does give a little sci-fi energy, but we're overlooking that. And the design does look pretty cool though. I do like that he just kind of pieces out with the head. You see some of the spine just hanging off. It's kind of gruesome in its own right? This game is definitely on my radar. I would need to see more, but yeah. And that's really it. And I say like that wasn't a lot, but that's like, what, 6 games or something? Overall, I think the Game Awards was a success. I thought the musical performances were good. Snoop Dogg, can we talk about that? Snoop Dogg, here's my thing. I think Snoop Dogg's performance was fine, but it clearly wasn't his audience. And I know, I guess he's in Fortnite now, but I just wonder what goes through these executive's head, you know, like, oh man, let's bring Snoop Dogg, the gamers will love that. My jollies came from when the camera panned to the audience. Like, it was just kind of like, yeah, you know, yeah. And then there were some people who were like vibing to it, you know. I just thought it was funny. And speaking of musical performances, they brought back Flute Guy, and they sure as fuck gave this man screen time. They were like, yo, roll the camera on him like 4 or 5 times. It was crazy. I was like, okay, Mr. Flute Man. I said before, I don't really care about awards. Like, whoever wins whatever award, good for them. Like, hooray, like, no No ill will. But I will say, for the game of the year, while I was obviously rooting for Metaphor, I'm one of those people who I'm like, if I didn't, like, I will just vote for the game that I have played. And by vote, I just mean, like, we'll cheer for. Yes, I am one of those people who, if I have to make it a count me out. But while I was rooting for Metaphor, I am more than happy that it lost to Astrobot. I've never played Astrobot, but at least based on Twitter, everybody who I spoke to, or, you know, anytime Astrobot was brought up, it was always positive. Always, in my experience. It was positive. People enjoyed it. People were smiling. People couldn't get enough of it. They're so excited for this new, like, Christmas level, I think, that just released. And the world just seemed happier when they played Astrobot. You know, just people seemed happier. And it was just kind of refreshing to see a really positive, happy, joyful conversation amongst gamers. You know, I think the world could use a lot of joy right now, and I really feel like Astrobot, like, brought a lot of people together, and I just think that was a beautiful thing. So I think it's very deserving of the Game Award for that reason, and any game that pays respects to Suikoden and, of course, Wild Arms, yeah, deserves all the love. And now I leave you with the question, what did you guys think of the Game Awards? Did you like it? Was it slow, well-paced? You have any games you're excited for? Any games that you're like, ew, why is this a game? That's me with almost any realistic style. And remember to like and subscribe, because we are done with 50K. We're moving on to 60K, baby. So help us sister out. And I will see you in the next video. Mwah!